The grand atrium of the Galactic Concordance shimmered like a jewel suspended in the void, its crystalline arches refracting the light of 3 suns into a kaleidoscope of arrogance. Every surface gleamed with the kind of opulence only a civilization convinced of its own superiority could achieve. Polished obsidian floors from the volcanic tombs of Catherine Prime, luminescent tapestries woven from the silk of extinct Yilthari skyworms, and hovering chandeliers that hummed with the captured essence of dying stars. High Ambassador Vexthar of the Vexthari Dominion adjusted his ceremonial mantle, a garment stitched from the hides of creatures his ancestors had personally hunted to extinction, and surveyed the gathering with 4 cold golden eyes. His mandibles twitched in what passed for amusement among his kind. Primitives, he thought, watching the newest delegation approach. The humans. They moved awkwardly in their stiff, unadorned suits, their soft pink faces betraying none of the dignified poise expected of a species worthy of standing among the concordance. Elias Carter, a linguist whose unassuming demeanor had already been the subject of quiet derision in the pre-gala briefings. "Ah," Vexthar intoned, his voice a resonant baritone that had been genetically perfected over generations to convey effortless dominance. "The humans. How quaint that you finally joined us." Dr. Carter offered a small, polite smile. "Ambassador Vexthar, it's an honor." The Vexthar's upper set of eyes narrowed. Honor, a weak word dripping with the kind of emotional sincerity that marked lesser species. He flicked a clawed hand toward the nearest refreshment spire. "Do try the Zixthal nectar, if your fragile biology can handle it." A ripple of amused clicks and hums passed through the nearby delegates. The Cathoran delegation, their crystalline exoskeletons refracting disdain in prismatic patterns, observed from a calculated distance. Senior Archivist Vis of the Cathoran Collective leaned toward her aide, her voice a whisper of grinding quartz. They brought a linguistic offering. How adorable! The humans, oblivious or perhaps willfully ignorant of the undercurrents, stepped onto the central dais. A hush fell, more out of morbid curiosity than respect. Dr. Carter cleared his throat. "Members of the Galactic Concordance, as a gesture of goodwill, humanity would like to present our latest advancement in cross-cultural communication." He gestured to a small, unassuming device on the pedestal beside him, the Universal Translation Matrix. A beat of silence. Then, laughter. Not the warm, communal laughter of shared joy, but the sharp, derisive sound of a dozen species united in condescension. "You expect us to be impressed by this toy?" Vexthar sneered. "The Concordance has had flawless translation tech for millennia." Dr. Carter's smile didn't waver. "With all due respect, Ambassador, our research suggests that existing translators merely substitute words. Ours understands them." Visses emitted a sound like shattering glass, the Cathoran equivalent of a scoff. "And what, precisely, does that mean?" "It means," Carter said, tapping the device, "that our translator doesn't just convert language, it adapts it. Context, subtext, cultural nuance. It ensures the meaning is preserved, not just the syllables." A murmur of disbelief. Wild Zubble, 14 dullinous forms rippling with unease, exchanged nervous pulses of bioluminescence. The humans were either dangerously naive or dangerously arrogant. Vexthar's mandibles twitched again. "A bold claim. Prove it." Carter nodded. He activated the device, the translator word, and the galaxy screamed. The word "hello" fractures the gala. To the Vexthari, it is the hiss of a predator's challenge. To the Catharan, it echoes their forbidden death rites. The Yilthari collapse, their nervous systems flooding with ancestral terror. As panic erupts, Dr. Carter realizes the horrifying truth. Their translator doesn't just convey meaning, it weaponizes it. The gala's crystalline hall had been a symphony of arrogance until the humans pressed a button. Dr. Elias Carter watched the universal translator hum to life, its sleek interface glowing with naive optimism. Ambassador Vex of the Vextari had smirked, mandibles twitching in amusement, when the humans announced their gift to the Galactic Concordance. Primitives, that smirk said. What could their barking sounds possibly contribute to a civilization that had mapped the stars before their ancestors crawled from the mud? Then the translator spoke. One word, 5 letters. Galactic chaos. The Vextari delegation recoiled first. Ambassador Vex's carapace plates flared wide, his 4 eyes dilating to black pits. To his species, the word didn't translate, it hissed. A predator's challenge, the kind uttered by the razor-jawed stalkers of Vexthar's jungles before they lunged for the throat. His second-in-command, Zixthar, slammed a clawed hand onto the table, screeching, "You dare?" Across the hall, the Catharan delegation froze. Their bureaucratic robes, woven from hyper-threads of legal scripture, trembled as if caught in a gale. To them, hello was no greeting. It was the opening cadence of the Cathoran death chant, a ritual phrase so forbidden its utterance carried a penalty of neural erasure. High Legate Vis clutched his chest, his respiratory vents wheezing. This is an act of cultural desecration. Then the Ylthari collapsed, their aquatic bodies, suspended in shimmering hydrogel suits, convulsed as the words slithered into their brains. To the Ylthari, hello was the sound, the exact frequency, the precise harmonics of the Leviathan's cry, the mythical beast said to have devoured their first cities. Delegates thrashed, their bioluminescent markings flashing emergency crimson. One screamed, "They awaken it!" before her neural dampeners overloaded. Dr. Carter's stomach dropped. The gala had become a fractal of panic, aliens shouting, fleeing, activating personal shields. A Vextari guard drew a plasma caster, aiming it at the human contingent. "Explain this treachery!" "Wait!" Carter lunged forward, hands raised. "It's a mistake. The translator wasn't supposed to." "Liar!" Zygthar's voice cut through the din. "You weaponized your language! That word, it's a psychological assault!" Carter's mind raced. The translator's diagnostics flickered on his wrist display, a flood of error codes. Not errors, he realized with dawning horror. Adaptations! The device wasn't just converting hello into alien tongues. It was sculpting it, warping it to resonate with each species' deepest fears. A mirror for their nightmares. Each. The Cathoran's high legate staggered to his feet. The concordance must convene immediately. This atrocity cannot stand. His voice was ice, but his pupils were blown wide with terror. Carter turned to Ambassador Vex, desperate. "You have to believe me. We didn't know." Vex's mandibles quivered. Not with anger now, but something worse. Certainty. "Oh, you knew," he hissed. "You tested this on us." A predator doesn't reveal its fangs by accident. Then the feeds went live. Every delegate's neural uplink had recorded the incident. Within seconds, hello ricocheted across the galactic networks, stripped of context, amplified by panic. Carter watched in real time as trade agreements dissolved, as the Vextari battle fleet shifted to high alert, as the Cathoran Senate voted unanimously to recall all ambassadors from human space. The holographic emblem of the High Tribunal materialized above the shattered remains of the translator, its golden scales flickering like a death knell. Carter's mouth went dry. Behind him, his team's faces were pale with shock. One whispered, "My God, what have we done?" The answer was unfolding in real time, on screens, in streets, in the hearts of 1,000 species who would never hear hello the same way again. And the worst part, the translator was still running. The gala's grand hall, once a symphony of interstellar diplomacy, had become a war zone of misinterpretation. The echoes of hello still reverberated through the chamber like a virus, mutating with each retransmission. Dr. Elias Carter's fingers flew over his datapad, pulling up the translator's logs, but the numbers bled into nonsense. The device wasn't malfunctioning, it was evolving. Across the room, the Vextari delegation had drawn their ceremonial plasma blades, the weapons humming with lethal intent. Their leader, Zixthar, hissed through serrated mandibles, "You dare declare dominance over the Concordance? Your predator's challenge will be met with fire." Carter's assistant, Lieutenant Mira Vasquez, grabbed his arm. "Sir, the Cathoran just locked down their embassy. They're calling it a cultural quarantine. And the Yilthari," a shrill aquatic wail cut her off. The Yilthari ambassador, a gelatinous mass of bioluminescent tendrils, had collapsed into a quivering puddle, their neural frills pulsing with panic. "The deep song! It warns us!" they burbled, their translator disc spitting static. "The humans speak the language of the abyss." Carter's stomach lurched. This wasn't translation. This was psychological excavation. 3 hours later, the Galactic Concordance's emergency channel was a cacophony of outrage. A Catharan bureaucrat, their crystalline carapace flickering with alarm, projected a star map. "Trade routes are dissolving. The Vextari have mobilized their entire third fleet near human space." Carter watched the holographic display with mounting dread. Crimson dots bloomed like wounds across the galaxy, systems where "hello" had metastasized into terror. The translator's algorithm was a fractal mirror reflecting each species' deepest traumas. To the Vextari, it echoed the war chants of their ancient rivals, the ones they genocided to claim their throne. To the Cathoran, it matched the cadence of their executioner's litany, the last words heard by dissidents. The Yilthari heard the subsonic click of the leviathans that hunted their ancestors in the midnight trenches. Carter stood, his knees trembling. "We didn't know," he insisted. "Our translator doesn't just convert words, it adapts them to the listener's cultural context. We thought it would bridge gaps, not lock it aboard the human research vessel." Lexicon. The team worked in frenzied silence. Carter exhaled sharply. "We need to shut it down, now!" The face of the UN Secretary General filled the screen, her expression grim. "Elias, the Vextari have given us 12 hours to surrender the weapons architects. If we don't comply, they'll glass Mars." Carter's vision blurred. Mars, 4 million colonists. The ship lurched violently. Alarms screamed as the Lexicon's shields flared under weapons fire. In the docking bay, Zixthar's warriors stormed through the breached airlock, their carapaces gleaming like oil-slicked knives. Carter raised his hands, but the Vextari commander didn't care for surrender. Carter met his gaze. "Kill me, and you'll never understand how to stop it." A tense silence. Then, Carter nodded to Vasquez. She tapped her wristband, and the lexicon speakers emitted a new phrase. The Vextari flinched, but this time, the translator didn't twist the words into a weapon. It hesitated. Zixthar's blade wavered. "What, is this trickery?" Outside the viewport, the stars watched, waiting to see if a galaxy built on arrogance could learn humility before it burned. The Concordance High Tribunal chamber was a cavern of cold light and colder judgment. The walls, carved from the black obsidian of a dead world, drank in the whispers of the assembled delegates like a hungry void. At the center of the chamber, beneath the triple-arched ceiling where holographic sigils of justice flickered ominously, stood Dr. Elias Carter. His human frame seemed absurdly small against the towering presence of the Vextari prosecutor, Zixthar, whose chitinous plating gleamed like polished knives in the dim light. Zixthar's mandibles twitched as he addressed the tribunal, his voice a symphony of barely restrained fury. "This is not mere negligence. This is psychological genocide." The words slithered through the universal translators of every delegate, each species hearing it laced with their own cultural understanding of atrocity. The Catharan delegates stiffened, their crystalline exoskeletons emitting a subsonic hum of distress. The Yilthara's bioluminescent markings flared crimson, their tendrils coiling tight around their translation orbs. Carter clenched his fists. The weight of the galaxy's fear pressed down on him, thick as atmospheric pressure on a gas giant. He had spent the last 48 hours dissecting the translator's algorithms, tracing how a single word had unraveled centuries of diplomacy. Now, he had to make them understand. A murmur rippled through the chamber. The Catharan linguist Vis's shifted uncomfortably, her faceted eyes reflecting the hologram's glow. Preposterous, Zixthar hissed. The Vexthar hissed. Apod you not have traumas. We are the pinnacle of evolution. Carter didn't blink. Then why did hello sound like a challenge to you? He played a recording, the original human greeting, unfiltered, warm, harmless. The chamber's acoustics carried it like a whisper, and for the first time, the delegates heard it as humans did. Then, a sound no one expected, a low, resonant click from Vis. The Cathoran linguist uncoiled slightly, her exoskeleton creaking. Our early translation matrices did exhibit similar biases, she admitted, her voice brittle. The Cathoran word for peace was once mistranslated as surrender. It sparked 3 system wars. Zixthar's claws flexed. Irrelevant. The humans unleashed this weapon knowingly. The Tribunal's arbiter, a being of flickering plasma known as the luminal voice, pulsed with deliberation. You propose the concordance itself is flawed? Carter met its shimmering gaze. I propose that all communication is flawed unless we account for the scars behind it. The chamber erupted. The Yilthari delegates trilled in agitation. The Vexthari guards tightened their grip on their pulse blades. Zixthar lunged toward Carter, his carapace flaring with aggression, and froze. A new sound filled the chamber. A child's voice piped through the comm system. A Vexthari youngling, its chitin still soft, repeating the human greeting from a cultural exchange feed. Hello? No one recoiled. No one panicked. The word hung in the air, untainted. Zixthar staggered back as if struck. This is a trick. The luminal voice dimmed, then brightened, a sign of rare uncertainty. The tribunal recesses to deliberate. And sometimes that was enough to let the light in. Outside the chamber, the stars watched, waiting to see if a civilization built on certainty could learn to doubt. The chamber's luminescent walls pulsed like a slow, uncertain heartbeat as the tribunal recessed. Dr. Elias Carter wiped his palms against his sleeves, the fabric damp with sweat. Across the room, the Vexthari prosecutor, Zixthar, coiled his segmented limbs in agitation, his chitinous plates clicking like a countdown. The humans had cracked the concordance's veneer of infallibility, but a crack wasn't enough. They needed it to shatter. Then the Yilthari delegate, a gelatinous mass of iridescent tendrils, rippled forward. Silence. Even Zixthar's clicking stilled. Carter's breath caught. Proof. Not just of human innocence, but of galactic hypocrisy. He straightened. The problem isn't our word, it's the systems we use to interpret it. Translation isn't just about vocabulary, it's about context, trauma, history. The Catharan linguist Vis hissed through her spiracles. You propose we discard millennia of protocol? Zixthar's mandibles twitched. Absurd. The concordance does not negotiate with linguistic anarchists. But the Yilthari pulsed again, louder. We will share our archives. The humans are not wrong. Zixthar stormed into the command nexus, his carapace dark with fury. The crew stiffened, antennae quivering. A junior officer hesitated. High Prosecutor, the tribunal hasn't. The officer input the command. The ship hummed as the broadcaster charged. And then the screens flashed crimson. Zixthar recoiled as the translated word rebounded, filtered through the Catharan's own systems. The sound that blasted from the speakers wasn't hello. It was the Vexthari Hive Queen's final scream before her assassination. Warriors clutched their auditory pits, their exoskeletons locking in instinctive terror. Zixthar staggered, his neural ganglia flooding with panic. How? The human's word had twisted, evolved into their worst memory. The alert blared across every comm in the concordance. Carter's wrist pad lit up with emergency feeds. Vexthari ships adrift, crews catatonic, Catharn defense grids powering down in confusion. Vis's ocular membranes dilated. You knew this would happen. Carter shook his head. I hoped it wouldn't. But you can't weaponize a mirror. The Ylthari trembled, its tendrils weaving a frantic pattern. The firewall, now, before more systems collapse. Zixtar's image flickered onto the central holo, his usually impeccable carapace dull with shock. The humans, their solution. Implement it. The admission cost him, his voice splintered. Carter didn't smile. Victory tasted like ash. We'll need full access to the translation matrix. And your cultural databases, no redactions. The Cathoran High Judge, a towering figure of interlocking silica plates, ground his limbs together. This is unprecedented. So is a galaxy where hello starts wars, Carter said softly. The judge exhaled, a sound like falling sand. Begin. Deep within the concordance's core, the translation matrix writhed like a living thing. Carter's team injected their algorithms, empathy protocols, trauma buffers, 100 safeguards woven from human and alien input. Warm, the team's AI flickered anxiously. Sir, the Vexthari emotional lexicon is volatile. Then, well, use their own stories to stabilize it, Carter said. He fed in the Hive Queen's last poem instead of her scream. The Matrix stuttered. Then, slowly, it calmed. On the view screen, the word hello cycled through species. Vexthari, Cathari, each iteration, softer, gentler. The Catharan heard a sunrise chant, the Ylthari a current's whisper. Zixtar watched, silent. Carter met his gaze. It's not perfect, but it's a start. Outside the chamber, the stars still watched, but now they listened too. The chamber lights dimmed, casting long shadows across the faces of the concordance delegates. The air hummed with the residual tension of a galaxy on the brink, not of war, but of something far more terrifying, change. Zixtar, the Vexthari prosecutor who had once demanded humanity's expulsion, leaned forward, his four obsidian eyes narrowing. An admission of what? A murmur rippled through the chamber. The Catharan delegates shifted, their crystalline exoskeletons clicking softly. The Ylthara's bioluminescent markings flickered in uneasy patterns. Carter tapped the translator. A single word pulsed across the room, but this time it was different. To the Vexthari, it carried the cadence of a hunter's respect, not challenge. To the Cathoran, it resonated like the first note of a reconciliation hymn. The Ylthari heard it as the gentle push of a tide, not the riptide of fear, but the welcoming swell of a shared shore. You've recalibrated the matrix, Vis, the Cathoran linguist observed. Their voice was quieter now, less brittle. He gestured to the holo screen, where streams of data intertwined, cultural archives, historical trauma logs, even art. It cross-references. Before it speaks, it listens. A Zixtar's mandibles twitched, and if it fails, Carter smiled, then we'll hear about it. I'll, loudly, and we'll fix it, together. The concordance ratified the new protocols within the hour. The linguistic firewall became mandatory for all diplomatic channels, but the real shift was subtler. Galactic Standard, once a sterile neutral tongue, began absorbing human idioms. The Vexthari fleet stood down, but their admiral sent a missive to Earth. Teach us this. Context. The Cathoran, ever bureaucratic, established the first interspecies linguistics institute on Mars. Their inaugural course? How to say hello without starting a war. Their ambassador approached Carter after the session, her bioluminescence pulsing a slow, deep blue. Your word, she said. It remembered us. Carter frowned. Remembered? Carter exhaled. Then, I'm sorry. 1 year later, Carter stood in the newly opened Vexthari Cultural Embassy on Earth. The walls were adorned with holographic murals, scenes of Vexthara's crimson deserts alongside Earth's oceans. A young Vexthari child, her carapace still soft with youth, peered up at him. "Hello," Carter said carefully. The translator around his neck glowed green. The child tilted her head. Then, tentatively, she echoed, "Hello." No panic, no terror, just curiosity. Behind her, Zixthar watched, his posture uncharacteristically relaxed. "A start," he rumbled. Carter grinned. "Yeah, a pretty good one." Outside, the stars still watched. But now, they understood. In the official records, it was logged as the Universal Translator Incident resolved. It wasn't the word. It was the silence after. Years later, the Hello Protocol became standard for first contact. The Interspecies Linguistics Institute flourished, its halls filled with debates over inflection and intent. Dr. Carter often visited the Ylthari ambassador, now a close friend, to study their word for mirror. Zixthar, once humanity's fiercest critic, chaired the Galactic Concordance's new committee for contextual diplomacy. His opening speech was legendary. "We assumed language was a weapon. The humans reminded us it is a bridge, one we must walk with care." As for the original translator, it sat in a museum on Mars, its display plaque reading, "Here lies the device that taught the galaxy a terrible, wonderful truth. Words do not mean. We do."